Now, come along, children. The Zandalari scalping ceremony is starting in a couple of minutes, so we need to be quick. Mr. Arklid, what are those trolls doing over there? What? Oh, those are the Gurubashi, they're being mind-controlled against their will. Normal stuff. You know what? Let me see. I suppose we have some time to explain this embarrassing excuse for a tribe. Gather around, children. Our story starts 1,500 years ago in the lands of Stranglethorn. This dense jungle is where the Gurubashi tribe lived. They were once a booming empire during the Troll's reign on Azeroth, but since the Sundering they've remained in the jungles of Stranglethorn and the surrounding islands. But this tropical life wasn't sipping pina coladas and enjoying a nice day at the beach. Instead, life was about getting caught in the rain, having your friends get mauled by tigers, and not eating for the past 3 days. It sucked. The trolls turned to aid of some mysterious god called Hakar the Soulflayer. The priests that worshipped him were called the Drakkari, and in exchange for sacrificed souls, he'd bestow the trolls with his power. In hindsight, fueling a mysterious god with living sacrifices doesn't seem like a good idea, but it was kind of the troll's only option. Until eventually he demanded to be summoned into the physical world so that he may feast on the blood of his victims firsthand. Those victims being every creature on Azeroth, including the trolls that worship him. A majority of the Drakkari were like, "This was a mistake!" But a fanatical group called the Autelai worked on summoning the Soulflayer. The Gurubashi, with the help of the Zandalari, kicked out not only the Autelai priests, but also a lot of the less fanatical Drakkari, and the priests went to go make a temple to continue their worship in the Swamp of Sorrows. After this bloody civil war, the Gurubashi tribe was split into 4 different entities that battled over control of the jungle. One remained as the Gurubashi tribe, but you also have the Bloodscalp, the Skull Splitters, and the Darkspear. Conveniently, the Bloodscalp and Skull Splitters colored their hair red and blue so we could tell them apart, and the Darkspear, well, they were a tribe of the biggest betas in all of Stranglethorn. Their small size and peaceful nature made them easy targets for the other tribes, and their history was filled with famine and brutal losses in battle. Eventually, the tribe had enough torment and sailed off into the sunset where they'd eventually join the Horde. Them migrating actually happened after the Dark Portal was opened, so hundreds and hundreds of years in the future, but I just wanted to mention it now to make the video go smoother. Make the story time go smoother. Anyways, hundreds of years pass, and up in the north, the humans of Stormwind want to expand their kingdom. At this time, Barathan Rin was the king of Stormwind, and his tactic was just to have a bunch of troops set up camps in Stranglethorn and just turtle up like it's a game of Warsong Gulch. Barathan thought that this would be the best non-aggressive tactic, and the trolls would kind of just let them begrudgingly stay there, but that was definitely not the case. Troll raiding parties grew larger and larger, and eventually they'd even slip past the human defenses and raid their settlements. So what was King Barathan Rin's response to this? Just keep playing defensively, guys. We got this. Spoilers, they did not have it. Prince Lane grew more and more frustrated with his father's non-aggressive approach and strongly advocated the humans bring the fight to the trolls before more innocents died. The breaking point was when a troll raiding party breached into the farmlands of Westfall and burned down a total of 3 towns to the ground. Eventually, the trolls would be killed off, but it was clear that something needed to change. The king gathered only the most intelligent nobles and came up with a plan. Hello, citizens of Stormwind. I have decided in order to stop these invading savages breaching our lands, we must continue to play defensively and let the trolls bully us. Thank you. Prince Lane was livid with his father's decision, so he decided to take matters into his own hands. Behind his father's back, Prince Lane worked with Anduin Lothar, commander of the Alliance, and Medivh, and ventured into Stranglethorn to end this war once and for all. Now, here's the deal. Medivh is powerful. Like, powerful. Like, he is the chosen one who should be protecting the whole world from catastrophic events. This whole petty war between trolls and humans was far below what he was destined to do. So when the three of them snuck into Stranglethorn, he just fucking destroyed the trolls and their leader.
Ready for action.
Lane and Lothar didn't know Medivh was that powerful, and the three of them dusted off their hands and went back to Stormwind. Our job here is done, but you guys didn't do anything. Yep, but the Gurubashi were not going to take this beating just lying down. Shortly after, an overwhelming army of trolls pushed forward to the gates of Stormwind. Prince Lane confessed to his father what he and his two allies did behind his back, and the king made the honorable decision to not to play defensively for once, and blindly charged into the heart of the troll army to kill their leader, and died in the process. Prince Lane felt like he was responsible for his father's death, and begged Medivh for another get-out-of-jail-free card, and Medivh agreed. And then all the trolls got utterly destroyed, but I'd just like to say the Gurubashi probably could have won if the humans didn't have, I don't know, the Warcraft version of Superman on their team, so I think it's a bit unbalanced. Fortunately, 70 years or so pass and the Dark Portal is opened, and the Gurubashi finally get the taste of victory. The Bleeding Hollow clan attempted to take over Stranglethorn, but surprisingly the trolls pushed them out. Which I know, amazing, the trolls actually have the ability to win a war. So let me just... There we go. Anyways, where was I? Cut the Classic and the Gurubashi are still weak and decide, you know what, just fuck it bro, we're just gonna worship Hakar. Players go in, we kill a bunch of trolls and Hakar. Then in Cataclysm, one boss named Jindo the Hexer enslaves Hakar and renames himself into Jindo the Godbreaker. Of course, we kill him, and over time the Gurubashi have just been whittled down more and more. A witch doctor by the name of Vuljamba had a vision of the Zandalari Empire's downfall. This vision was false, by the way. So, in preparations for this doomsday event, he enslaved the remaining Gurubashi trolls and found refuge in Zandalar and used them for slave labor to stockpile rations of food. Horde players put a stop to this and massacre the Gurubashi trolls, who were basically used as cannon fodder. And that's the Gurubashi, which is pretty depressing, isn't it, kids? I know. So, come along, we don't want to be late. I hear if we get front row for the scalping ceremony, we might even be in the bloody splash zone. Whew, that will be exciting. So, Mr. Arklin, is there any happy story about the trolls? What? I mean, of course, probably. Let me see. No, definitely not. No. Okay, here's one. This is the story of the Mossflayer tribe. Back during the Second War, a lot of forest trolls allied with the Horde. The Horde at this time was an extremely powerful but also extremely volatile faction, filled with backstabbing and conflicting ideals. So after the war, many of the trolls broke off from the Horde and preferred to stay very isolationist and kill any other race on sight. And this is what the Mossflayers did. This tribe of trolls was on the border of the human lands of Lordaeron, and during the Third War, it was absolutely ravaged by the plague of undeath. Other races would see this as a great threat that would surely come for them as well, but the trolls saw an amazing opportunity.
I can't take it! I can't do it!
So while the kingdom of Lordaeron was battered and bruised, the Mossflayers were on the sidelines, poking them with a stick to ensure the Pinkskins' downfall. And while the plague didn't have an effect on the trolls, it was hard to deny that it did have an effect on their environment and the creatures within it. Unfortunately, a troll hunting party killed some animals and feasted on their flesh, which was cursed by a lich that turned them all into undead. So plague-infected grain doesn't work on trolls. Cursed bear ass, now that works on trolls. And a troll named Hamir was now a slave to this mysterious lich and was compelled to return back to the Mossflayer's home of Zul Mashar and infect his whole tribe. During Classic, the encampment is filled with shallow graves, signifying that the Mossflayers were easily brought to their knees by this infectious disease. And come to think of it, wow, that isn't happy at all. Well, down south a bit, there is the Revantusk and the Vilebranch. Now, the Revantusk have actually remained allies with the Horde, which gives the Horde a foothold in the hinterlands, and the Trolls a ridiculous amount of firepower. The problem is, the Revantusk are seen as cowards for bending a knee to such disgusting Horde filth, and the fanatical Vilebranch tribe has taken a liking to kidnapping these trolls and using them for sacrifices. But since the Revantusk are allies with the player character, of course the Vilebranch gets annihilated. And yeah, I guess that's the happiest troll story in history, so... Ooh, that's High Speaker Malacross. He's the last Drakkari troll in all of Azeroth. And he's also the grumpiest, with good reason. The Drakkari was once an immensely powerful empire located in what we'd eventually call Northrend. The empire was well known for their strong connection to the Loa and established the lands of Zuldrak, which was filled with monolithic temples and complex aqueducts. The Drakkari lived in relative peace for thousands of years, but we all know these trolls were not the only residents in Northrend. During the wrath of the Lich King, Arthas and his Scourge armies were at full force, and the undead threat eclipsed over the Drakkari's once mighty empire. Don't get me wrong, the Drakkari Empire was strong, but at the end of the day, it was a bunch of trolls with sticks fighting against a floating necropolis that can shoot laser beams. The first Drakkari fortress to fall was Draktheron Keep, which is now infested with the Lich King's undead minions. At the end of the dungeon, there is a troll named Drakkari who betrays his people, and the Lich King grants him power which makes him big and scary. But meanwhile, us as the player characters kind of just awkwardly watch while this whole event is happening and we don't really do anything about it. But despite the keep being easily disposed of, the Drakkari would not give up that easily. Deep within the capital of Gundrak, fanatical prophets have begun sacrificing their own gods for untold power. A power that is the only thing stopping the trolls from being fully consumed by the might of the Scourge.
Who needs gods when we are gods?
I'm the literal fucking god.
These trolls are now fueled with incredible, unmatched strength, and in their hubris, they warred with not only the Scourge, but also the Argent Dawn and the Ebon Blade, who didn't want to kill the trolls. They just want to kill the Scourge just like the Drakkari, and this is the biggest mistake the Drakkari ever made, because this means that they're at war with the player character. And we haven't lost in 15 goddamn years. So we go into Gundrak, and before we talk about anything, we need to talk about the tale. Since this dungeon's inception, Players have talked about this gigantic snake tail. Whose tail is it? How did it get here? Why is it here? Well, at BlizzCon 2011, we got an answer from Chris Metzen himself.
If you look over the cliff, there's a big wiggly snake tail. So I brought a screenshot of it. I blew it up.
That's the first sign of the return of the Titans. And Medivh will be them.
The forums will be holding you
And
to
Thrall
that.
is going to leave Agra and start Jaina. I don't know what the hell that snake thing is, but it's kind of cool.
Okay, well, I guess it's just there to look cool. So, let's go kill some crazy trolls.
1,000 fangs gonna rend your flesh.
Get ready for something much bigger. I'm gonna spill your guts.
I'm literal fucking dead.
The Drakkari's downfall in Wrath of the Lich King is probably the biggest troll downfall in the history of Azeroth. In BFA, there's exactly one Drakkari alive named Malakraz. One single troll who has to carry the weight of his fallen empire. Alone. Longing for the snowy mountains of Northrend, where his people once lived in peace. But you know what, kids? Maybe a lesson can be learned about all these stories. You know, in this crazy world of Azeroth, filled with an endless amount of things wanting to kill you, we need each other. Being alone and unaccepting of others only leads to your downfall. Our differences are our biggest strength, and if we just use the power of friendship, we can defeat the forces of evil once and for all.
Welcome one and all to the annual scalping ceremony. A ceremony where we will show that the troll empires will never bend a knee for others. And to start this ceremony, we shall begin with the non-believers!
Pay close attention, kids. Trolls are known for their masterful scalping. But what I need from you right now is for you to say it, and I also need, like, you to go on full cam so I can get your face too.
And what do you want me to
if
say?
you could just, like, look to the left a little bit, and then say your line.
Sub to the Platinum House.